Axiom of Choice by Literally Mad Lad on AO3. Episode 14. Chapter 5. It's an innocent science experiment. I swear. For science. Katsuki's fingers dug into the gaps between the wooden planks. The girl was sobbing the entire way back to the gravel road. Katsuki sunk lower, out of sight of the dock. The sour taste in the air settled in his stomach. Guilt. He had done something wrong, hadn't he? Deku had told him to stay away from the kids, and he had listened for so long. Maybe Deku didn't want him to take care of the issue. Something cracked. It was deafening, and as it echoed, it shook into a low ring in Katsuki's sensitive ears. He dropped into the water, the sound making him feel like a sheet of metal being struck. Katsuki slid under the dock, coiling his tail close so he was contained in the dark shadows and weeds. It took several long, silent minutes before the door to the cave opened again. When it did so, Deku's labored breath dragged down the stairs. His boots were heavy. When Deku came within range of the pool, something solid cramped to the rocks and slammed to the ground. Through the floorboards, Katsuki gathered the silhouette shape of Deku, crossing the cave to rest the metal barrier of the rift against the rocks. Deku sniffled, exhaustion weighing his breath down. When he recovered, he treaded over to the dock, the crinkle of a plastic bag tossed over Katsuki's prize. The plank over Katsuki's head creaked. All Katsuki could hear were the crickets outside fade in absolute silence. The breeze vanished. Katsuki swallowed against the urge to flee. He had done something wrong. He had done everything wrong. As much as he didn't want to believe it, he should have just taken Deku for his word. Deku set the plastic bag down and came to the edge of the dock. He kneeled down, and a moment later, dipped his head down to peer underneath the platform. Between the beams, Katsuki could see the dark shadow of Deku's head, intercepting the view of the cave overhauling. "It's okay, Kachan," Deku whispered, voice wavering. He reached a hand down, his arm stretching out under the planks. His fingers hovered a breath away from where Katsuki had pushed himself against the rocks. "Did he hurt you?" Deku asked. The worst Katsuki had from the fight was a bent pelvis fin from the kid's kneecap. The worst of the pain from that was gone. He shook his head. "Come out and tell me what happened," Deku asked. Katsuki hesitated for a moment, until Deku sighed and sat back on his heels. The patter of his heart slurred. Could this be the last time he ever saw Deku? What were the odds that Deku would leave him? How long could Katsuki survive without Deku? Deku plunged at the laces of his boots until they untied. After shrieking off his shocks and rolling up the hems of his pants, his feet appeared on the rocky ledge beside the dock. Deku climbed down into the water, just deep enough for his ankles to submerge, before sitting down on the ledge. The reassurance that Deku would stay there led Katsuki out of the shadow. He approached tentatively, encountered by the distinguished soft look on Deku's face. Deku's shoulders were slack, tired, and his expression was all but gaunting with exhaustion. Katsuki slipped between Deku's legs before Deku could relax his elbows on his knees. Deku folded a hand against the back of Katsuki's neck, just above the rib edge of Katsuki's spinal fin, which had flattened in the wake of Deku's disappointment. "You aren't hurt?" Deku asked, and Katsuki shook his head. Deku's fingers were hot against his skin. "Then why did you kill him?" "He was taking my food." Katsuki signed. "I saw the hook and pulled him into the water with it." "Well, for future reference, you shouldn't mess with fishing hooks," Deku said. "Where did you put the rest of the body?" Katsuki shook his head, which prompted Deku to frown. "What did you do with it?" he said. Katsuki folded the tips of his fingers against his lips. Deku came back the next day to haul away the remains of their prey. When he returned, he was sweaty, dirty, and equipped with a bucket of cleaning supplies and a wheelbarrow of fresh river water. He took a saw to the dock boards where Katsuki had put the best part of his prize, and Deku explained that it was because wood was porous, so he needed to burn it. What do pores have anything to do with it? Katsuki asked. They trap things inside it. He explained. Blood, for example? Who cares? If someone comes around asking about those two, they won't be able to find them, Deku said. And you really hid the rest of the body, right? Katsuki refused to give up the location of his prey, and since Deku couldn't swim now due to the potential contamination, Deku couldn't go looking for it. Deku had brought Katsuki up onto the damn wood platform to be scrubbed down from head to toe before disposing into a containing pond for destruction of the week. Deku tested the water every hour of the following day in between rebuilding parts of the dock and gingerly staining the top part with a can of some foul-smelling substance. Deku scrubbed down every inch of the rock surface, careful to let it air out and dry over the week before dousing it in copious amount of river water. All the while, Katsuki watched from over the dam wall, wondering why in the hell Deku was going so overboard. Granted, Katsuki wasn't complaining. At least, not really. He spent the entire week with Deku, who normally he'd only see the nerd for a couple of hours a day. In fact, Deku was spending the nights. Katsuki got used to Deku's constant presence. During the night, while Deku slept, Katsuki watched him from a distance, and closed up, unfazed by the way Deku stirred when awoken, or by the obvious annoyance on Deku's face in the night when he caught Katsuki staring. Each time, Deku's tense brow eased, a faint smile on his lips, as he snuggled a bit further underneath the cushioned wrinkle wrap of a sleeping bag. When Katsuki was allowed into the pool again, the water felt cleaner than it had before. The containing pool was less salty than the water he was used to, and he stretched out in it. He realized quickly that it gave him almost immediate access to Deku's makeshift sleeping quarters at night. The expression from physical labor during the day knocked Deku out in the dark, so Katsuki pulled himself up into a stone ledge, mindful of his broken pelvis fin, and rolled onto his stomach to watch Deku just a little closer. The sleeping bag was lumpy and unflattened on Deku, but Deku didn't seem to care. In the mornings, his nose was pink from the cold, his freckles cheeky ruby red, and his eyes beery with sleep. It took several blinks for them to open completely. The static from the sleeping bag all went to his frizzy curls, which grew all the more unruly once separated from the fabric. Deku yawned. He checked his phone, which turned into several minutes of reading, while Katsuki awaited Deku's attention. At last, Deku set his phone aside. Alright, we're cutting it there. I actually have no notes. I mean, Izuku's being really cautious. You know, the wood thing is something that I would not think about. I guess I'm not a good murderer. Unless it is something that I would think about, and I'm just saying that to prove an alibi. I'm joking. I mean, murder is not something I think about. For the most part, I wouldn't murder someone anywhere near in my general location, because that is stupid. Like, super stupid. There would be tarts and, a lot of fire. Burning of the evidence. I would then scatter the ashes of that evidence everywhere else because I'm that paranoid. And, I would set a solid alibi. I mean, does there really need to be a solid alibi if the body is incinerated? You can't really determine time of death. Just saying. Sorry, I like true crime. Like, a lot, so this is stuff that I used to think about. Not how to commit murder, but, like, I used to think about what, other serial killers and murderers that have been caught and stuff, what they did wrong, and for the most part, the reason most get caught is either 1, they get cocky, 2, they get sloppy because they're letting their emotions guide the way, or 3, they hold trophies. They hold trophies. So either 1, they get cocky. They think they could tread lightly and do more murders faster, or talk literally to the police and give them hints and stuff like that. They get cocky. 2, they get sloppy because of emotions, right? This is normally think of put in a tight corner, stuff like that, right? Where it's like they're just out of emotions, just doing it and not really thinking it through and having shit go wrong. And last but not least, and most likely why most serial killers get found out, trophies. They keep trophies. And because of that, they get found out. I mean, I'm sorry, what's more incriminating than having the freaking IDs of all your victims? I'm sorry, that is literally a big sign saying I'm a serial killer. Anyways, point taken is, I always thought it was really interesting. Not that people got killed. It was always sad to hear about people's deaths and stuff like that. But what I found interesting a lot of the times is the methods and how they were found out, right? I actually used to want to be a detective, right? I loved true crime, and I was like, I always wanted to be a detective to be able to give families the closure that they need and put the person that, did all these horrible things behind bars and stuff like that. Clearly, I'm not a detective. Clearly, if you haven't seen. But I also was really fascinated with the mindset. So I always loved learning about the murderers upcoming and how that had affected them. I always believed, even before I got into psychology, I always believed, okay, trauma doesn't make a murderer. But maybe serial killers and murderers have a certain common trait. And I used to think of it in this way. We're either born a gun or we're born a teddy bear. You can give a teddy bear bullets being trauma. But the teddy bear will never hurt someone with those bullets. Give a gun a bullet. Give a gun trauma. Give a kid with severe mental issues, untreated severe mental issues, because just because you have mental issues does not mean that you're capable of murder. Just because you're diagnosed with anxiety does not mean you're capable of murder. Just because you're diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder does not mean you're capable of murder. People who have antisocial personality disorder does not mean that they're serial killers or serial killers in the making. No, right? It's a certain set of chemistry points that psychologists are still studying, which I find so fascinating. The minds of these criminals and what goes into it. And I find it fascinating because maybe one day we will be able to detect, what exactly it is that causes people to do this stuff, and maybe prevent murder before the urge even comes up, before the whole anything comes up, before murder even occurs, before the thought of murder occurs. And I don't mean like, killing the baby or, doing something, but like medicating, helping. It also helps if, mental health was less stigmatized. Stigmatized mental health is why, we have high crime rates. Believe it or not, psychology and crime go hand in hand, right? It could be a family member doing, selling drugs because they need to fend for their family. It could be a kid in a gang because the gang is the only family they've ever had. It could be, a bunch of shit, right? A bunch of shit goes into stuff. Obviously, there's people there's no saving those fucking idiots. But I find it fascinating, the minds of these people. Because even if we can't find a way to stop murder from happening to begin with, we could definitely, for a fact, study enough criminal minds that we could predict their behaviors. right? A serial killer starts killing and we get some experts on it and we get a whole breakdown and we're like, okay, most likely they're targeting this, this, and this, and they're gonna do this, and most likely it's someone of blank age and stuff like that, which, yeah, that exists right now, but it's not precise. It's sometimes wrong, but I hope that one day we get to the point where it's like super precise. Obviously not like being able to like, oh, I see this murder scene, it was definitely John Doe, but you get what I mean. You know, it's one of those situations where it's like it will get more accurate as time goes. And as I said, we could prevent it by helping people not become a loaded gun, you know, not drive to that point. Obviously there's some people that might not be able to be saved no matter what. It's just in their DNA. Or there's urges that they just won't suppress, because for somebody to change, it needs to be a two-way street. It can't be a one-way street. The person needs to want that change. If the person doesn't want that change, or doesn't see that there needs to be a change, nothing's gonna happen. Sorry, I went into a whole rant about that. My bad. Okay, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.